What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show live here on DSM-Media's YouTube and Twitter channels. On today's show, we are going to be discussing the Phillies Braves Nlds series, looking back on how they took care of the Marlins in a quick two-game set. The Eagles look to go 5-0 out in LA against Matthew Stafford and the Rams. And maybe, just maybe, towards the end of the show, we'll dive a little bit more into James Harden in Colorado, joining the team at practice. More trade talks with the Clippers, so on and so forth. But guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the new YouTube channel, DSM-Media-Philadelphia. Turn on notifications, whatever you got to do to be involved in the show. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with your host. I'm one half of them, Dylan Davis. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. My man, what is going on this Friday morning?
What is good? Good morning. Good morning out there to D-Rab, TR, Chile. Yeah, man, happy to be here. Obviously, excited to talk about the Phils, what they were able to do on Wednesday night, and what they're going to do this weekend, hopefully. And then, obviously, looking forward to that Eagles-Rams matchup, see if the Birds can go 5-0. But, yeah, man, I think I'm trying to catch up this morning. My phone died overnight. So my alarm didn't go off. I had to wake up naturally, but luckily I did, and you were ready to go. So here we are. But I think I must just be captivated by that Justin Fields performance last night. That amazing performance against the Commanders. But no, I'm happy to be here. Happy Friday, man.
Well, it's funny, man. You talk about that Justin Fields performance last night versus Washington, 40-20 that game goes. And that's why you can just, sit back as a football fan and watch week to week. Obviously, we're not expecting high scoring, fun football on Thursday night every week. Obviously, week one, we got the Lions upsetting the Chiefs. Week two, as Eagles fans, we got to experience their home opener. And then obviously week three was a little bit of a letdown spot with the 49ers and the Giants snooze fest. But last night, everyone's expecting some really, really bad football. And I don't know if it was good football necessarily on the side of the Washington Commanders, but nonetheless, you get a 40-20 game. DJ Moore, 3 touchdowns, over 230 receiving yards. You can't complain about the product you watched on Thursday Night Football. So it doesn't matter what two teams on paper are getting ready to play. It's always fun to have football on the television on Thursday night. But let's start on the diamond, man. The Phillies are back in the NLDS to take on Spencer Strider and the Atlanta Braves, set for 6:07 tomorrow. The first 2 games in Atlanta. We'll get into the importance of stealing at least one down there versus the Braves to come back to Philly 1-1. But first, let's look at how they took care of the Marlins in 2 games. Obviously, we talked about game 1 on Wednesday morning show. Zach Wheeler was phenomenal. 6 1/3, 6 2/3 innings pitched. Only one earned run given up on the credit of Zach Wheeler. The bullpen comes in, shuts them down, and you get into an elimination spot. You get into a spot where you can send a lesser talented, a lesser, mature squad, experienced squad in the Miami Marlins home and not give them that thought of a game 3. And what does Aaron Nola come out and do? He pitches a gem, man. He looks his best all year long. That's 3 great starts, 7 innings pitched, no earned runs on the card of Aaron Nola on Wednesday night. Obviously, Orion Kerkering got his first playoff work. He looked good. Gregory Soto comes in, slams the door in the 9th. The Phillies pitching staff was ready to go this series. And then Bryson Stott with maybe the most electric call, the most electric at-bat in recent Phillies history. And we've had some good ones, man. We've had a Reese Bats last year. We've had a Bryce basically walk off 2-run home run to send us to the World Series. Nothing's topping that. But this moment with Bryson Stott on Wednesday night, first pitch swinging, bases loaded, to rip that game wide open, to put the Phillies up 7-0. That was it right then and there. Was that the bottom of the 6th or bottom of the 7th? I believe it was bottom of the 6th. That was the game right there. The next 3 innings did not matter. The Marlins were not going to come back down 7-0. Obviously, they didn't. But this team is humming right now, man. And it's what makes you excited for the Phillies on this run, because it feels like something magical is occurring again.
Yeah, no, I think that's what makes this matchup with the Braves so intriguing. You just look at what the Phillies were able to do, especially in that second game with the bats and with Bryson Stott, specifically with the grand slam. It feels like another one of those special runs. This team once again just feels like they're special. They're willing to do whatever it takes under the bright lights to get it done. And once again, you come out of this series now, right? To only 2 games against the Marlins, and you didn't even get your best from your best player in Bryce Harper. And I think that's the most exciting thing is that the lefties will calm down as far as the pitching staff in this next series. That's something to look forward to just a little bit. I know the Braves have a few lefties they can throw out there, but for the most part, it isn't going to be 2 lefty studs that you're starting the series against like it was against the Marlins. So that should benefit Bryce Harper a good bit there, just getting him going. But I think just seeing the other guys be able to step up. You saw Trey Turner get back-to-back games with hits, right? Stolen bases in that series. Multi-hits, may I mention. 2 hits in each game, I believe, for Trey Turner. JT Realmuto, I was texting you during the game, and I was totally overlooking JT. And he cranks one out of the yard, man. He gets a multi-hit game in that game. So guys are stepping up. Obviously, Pache and Rojas didn't get any hits in the second game, but I believe that was from the first game as well. I was back.
Pache, the single.
Yeah, I was thinking about the good at bat, but I believe that was from the first game.
Pache did walk in the second game to come around and score the first run for the Phillies.
Gotcha. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of. He had a good first at bat. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to seeing Brandon Marsh in this next series as well. I think that's a guy that can step up, maybe make some game-changing plays in this series against Atlanta. So all in all, man, to see our 2 aces come out like that, game 1, game 2 against the Marlins, able to close the door, give up 1 run between both of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well,
Wheeler gave up 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm not giving out false stats.
Nah, you're good.
Nonetheless, to see those guys come out and pitch like that in the first 2 matchups, obviously we got to see what the rest of the pitching lineup is like. But I'm feeling good, man. I think this is a case as good as we're feeling. Not to sleep on the Braves either. Obviously, the best team, if not the best team in the MLB this season. And it feels like a team that is meant to go down this path in the Philadelphia Phillies is matching up with just a juggernaut of a talent of a team.
It's a shame, man. It truly is a shame that this is a 5-game series. It's truly a shame that these 2 teams play in the same division in the same league, because this feels like the World Series. The broadcast was talking about it. Social media is talking about it. A lot of people believe whoever wins the series is going to go on to win the whole thing. And it's hard to disagree with that. As a Phillies fan, obviously, we're sitting here hoping and praying that it's us that can get by Atlanta for the 2nd year in a row and maybe be that team, right? But it's hard to disagree with the fact that if the Braves do get by the Phillies, we're the best team in the regular season. Obviously, they could be on a run as well back to that spot again. But I think what you said is pretty important. You know, the fact that, again, it's only 2 games, but the fact that you didn't need any sort of heroics from really anybody, but any sort of heroics from Bryce Harper, right? Yeah. Bryce Harper hit a bloop single in his final at bat in game 1. I'm not even sure. I think he walked in game 2.
He got walked on his last one.
So nothing from Bryce, but everybody else, man. Like Trey in game 1 was 2 for 3 with a walk, right? The other night rips it right back off Braxton Garrett, it was either Braxton Garrett or the reliever, but rips it off his backside into the outfield for a hit, right? Alec Bowen with multiple doubles, Nick Castellanos with multiple doubles, JT with the big home run, Bryson Stott with an RBI in game 1 and a grand slam, Pache with an RBI, Rojas with that first plate appearance in game 1, Schwarber, deep balls from Schwarber, but guess what? RBI doubles, ripping singles to lead off innings. Kyle Schwarber is going as well. The entire lineup is producing.
Yeah.
And your home run hitters haven't even gotten going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's the beautiful thing about this Phillies
Power
ball
hasn't
club.
even shown up yet.
Is that, you would expect that to come out and play at
Yeah.
some point soon. So be careful, Atlanta. But the starting pitching between Nola and Wheeler is phenomenal. The bullpen came in and was really good. And then the bats, even with not needing Bryce, even with not really needing the long ball besides the 2 in game 2, this team is playing really,
Good enough.
really good baseball.
Yeah.
Trey is going to tear the Braves up. And I agree, man. I hate that it's not reseeded. And look, we've kind of drawn the short straw here because last year the Dodgers won over 100 games. They were the 1 seed, so as the 6 seed, that's why we automatically got Atlanta as their 2 seed.
Yeah.
This year, Atlanta gets the higher seed, as we're the higher seed, so we draw Atlanta again, no matter what.
Of course.
I hate it, but yeah, the fact that the Phillies won last year as the 6th seed, and the fact that the Diamondbacks won this year as the 6th seed is a perfect example of why you should reseed. Why is the number 1 overall wild card team playing the number 1 seed, no matter what happens in the first round?
Yeah.
Now, we can discuss whether that's a better series for the Phillies or not. Obviously, I think the Atlanta Braves are the more talented team than the LA Dodgers, but the Phillies have much more familiarity with the Braves. The Phillies have proven that they can go into Atlanta and win games in the regular season, in the postseason. The Dodgers, we can, maybe cross that bridge when we get there in the NLCS if they're able to come to get past the Arizona Diamondbacks. But I'm not going to sit here and be too frustrated with the seeding. Because I'm not so sure that I'm on my hands and knees praying that we were playing the Dodgers instead of the Braves.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there is an argument for the Phillies side of things where you look at this series with the Braves, it's a 5-game series. That might work out better for the Phillies in this series, right? When you're talking about a team that is as good as the Atlanta Braves, as deep as the Braves. So maybe they have a little bit more depth to withstand a 7-game series rather than a 5. So maybe it does work out into the Phillies' favor. And once again, from your standpoint that you mentioned, the familiarity, right, with the Braves versus the Dodgers, I think that's something to hold yourself up on. You look at last season, right? Last postseason, they were able to upset the Braves in the second round in the NLDS. Yeah. And mind you, I get it. Ronald Acuna was not there, but that's going to be a big difference, I'm sure. But I'm really hoping that they can keep him under control, man, because I do not need to see him in the postseason showboating around the bases. It's all good, trust me. It's not like anything particular with him, but I would rather not see that this postseason.
Right, it would just be such a killer to watch.
It's like a gut cruncher, right? Like it's like a punch to the gut, man. But no, I do agree with you. I think we don't need to be begging for the LA Dodgers and to travel across the United States.
Right.
Like we don't need to want that. Like
no, because the Braves are the better team. They're the deeper lineup. But when you look at the top head of that Dodgers lineup with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, and you have the power and the experience of Max Muncy and Chris Taylor and JD Martinez, and they made a bunch of moves at the deadline, and Clayton Kershaw, right? Like, listen, I love the Phillies' chances if they get there, potentially not to look past, but if they were to face the Dodgers later on down the road, I'm not saying I'm scared of the Dodgers, but it's not like when you were talking about seeding and reseeding, I'm pleading to rather play
we
them
have some better opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah. It is interesting. What would you prefer? I sent you this text last night when we were talking about the length of this series versus Atlanta. Are you happy that you get Atlanta in a 5-game series, or is it a little scary? Because you can look at it one of two ways: glass half full, glass half empty. You can look at it from the standpoint of it's only game best of 5, so you only need to beat them 3 times. So when you're talking about a team against Atlanta, it's not a long drawn out series where you have to beat the better team or an even team 4 times, right? However, less wiggle room. Less room for failure, less room for a bad loss, a comeback, a blown lead, whatever the case may be, because you can only lose 3 times and not that 4th game. So do you think, like, just in terms of this Atlanta matchup, forget the rest of the series moving forward, do you think it's a good thing or a scary thing that they play Atlanta in a best of 5?
Given what Chile's saying there, Braves bullpen is beat up
Yeah.
outside of Strider. So I mean that's something to consider, right? If they were to go 7 games, that might benefit the Phillies, whose bullpen is looking pretty strong right now, especially after that series against the Marlins. But ultimately, I guess I err on the side of it's probably better that it's a 5-game
Yeah.
series for the Phillies. I think as a baseball fan, you would love to see a 7-game series between these two teams because, as you mentioned, it
Right.
feels like the World Series matchup, what it should be. But the 5 games, I think anytime when you have a team now, I guess this depends, right? And I'll err to you. I'll throw this to you, but obviously the Braves had the better regular season. Are they the more talented team than the Philadelphia Phillies? I know that's tough. That's why I throw it to you because I'm a little biased. I'm a little novice when it comes to that type of question here, and it's interesting because my immediate response to your question was going to be if the Atlanta Braves are the better team, if they're the more talented team, then we would want to see them in 5, and I feel like we'll have a better chance if that is the case, right? As you mentioned, 7 games, that is the full amount in a series in the playoffs where the better team can show that they are better. It's more opportunity for that to come out. So I think in that case, I would rather have 5 games, but are they truly more talented? Like when you look at their lineup versus the Phillies lineup, do they have more talent in their lineup than the Phillies?
You're gonna make me act up, man. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no right today, and not just the lineup. You have to take the pitching staff and the bullpen into account. The Phillies bullpen is deeper and more talented than the Braves bullpen is at this moment. And beyond Spencer Strider, there are way too many unknowns in that Braves starting rotation than what the Philadelphia Phillies have to offer right now. I know we like to complain as Phillies fans, and I know the roller coaster that Aaron Nola has put us on over the last couple years and this season in particular. And we don't know if Taijuan Walker is capable of starting a game and getting through that first dreadful inning, right? We don't know what Christopher Sanchez might look like, etc., so on and so forth. But if you're the Atlanta Braves, beyond Spencer Strider, who you don't know much about this kid in the postseason anyway, because in limited action last year, he got his lunch money taken. So you don't know about him this year. You're assuming great things, right? He's probably going to win the Cy Young. But beyond that, Charlie Morton out. Max Fried just threw a simulation game 2 nights ago with a Band-Aid on that blister. Not allowed to wear the Band-Aid during the game. No idea what he's going to look like. No idea if he's 100% healthy to go with that throwing hand injury. Okay. Beyond that, what are you throwing at me? Bryce Elder? That's their best option. So the Phillies are deeper in their starting rotation. The Phillies are deeper in the bullpen. And yeah, sure, I'll tell you the Braves have a better lineup. We know they tied the record 307 home runs hit this year. They're ridiculous. Ronald Acuna steals 70 bags, hit over 40 home runs. He's probably the MVP. Matt Olson, hits over 40 or hits over 50 home runs, 100 and whatever RBIs. They're unbelievable. But I've told you this since day one last year when they acquired Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, let alone the bounce back from Castellanos and the addition of Trey Turner. I will take this Phillies lineup against any other lineup in the league. Are they better? I don't know if they're better than the Atlanta Braves. I'll say no, just to be fair and not be a homer. But it is as close can get to that dominant Braves order. And I think that's all you need to be in striking distance, right? Especially when you talk, like, I'll tell you this, the Phillies have more star power. The Phillies have more guys that can go out and say Austin Riley, right? Is a very good player, dangerous hitter. Is Austin Riley a star?
No, not yet, at least.
I take it so far to say Matt Olson. Matt Olson hit 53 home runs. Is Matt Olson a star? Let's go position by position. All right, catcher, JT or Travis d'Arnaud / Sean Murphy. I'm taking JT Realmuto.
Yeah. Anytime there's a slash, you're taking the other one.
First base, Matt Olson. Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper, yeah.
Right? Bryson Stott or Ozzie Albies. That's tough for me, man. That's really tough for me. I'll give you Ozzie, more experienced, whatever. Yeah. I mean, what you see from Bryson Stott this year and this postseason run so far, all right.
His story is far from over.
Trey Turner. It ends there. It's Trey Turner, right? Yeah. Third base, Alec Bohm or Austin Riley. I'll give you Austin Riley. Right field, Ronald Acuna Jr. I'll get Ronald Acuna. DH, Marcell Ozuna or Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
So trust me, if there's people out there that think this is a big gap where the Braves are just so much better than everyone, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this team is primed to beat the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah. If anybody has a good shot, it would be the Phillies, right? They're going to have the best shot at taking the Braves down. And I think that's why some people are calling this the World Series in the NLDS. And I think we've built this game up enough for this weekend, man, because I'm starting to get excited here just to see how this is going to look. Because once again, it just feels like the Phillies are this team that, it's kind of what we talked about during the regular season. Like the Phillies, I don't want to say they're not a regular season team, but it's just not where you're going to see their best night to night.
Yep.
But in the postseason, that is what they're built for. When those lights get brighter, when that crowd gets louder, that's what the Phillies are built for. And so they're running into this just juggernaut in the Atlanta Braves right now. You mentioned over 300 home runs across their lineup this season. And I think it's just going to create this explosion of two things running into each other, man. And, I guess the way I'm looking at when you're looking at this series as a whole, not just the first game against Strider, do you feel like this is a series where the Phillies are going to have to score enough runs? Or do you think this is a series where the Phillies bullpen, their pitching staff can kind of control this series and keep it to where the Phillies just have to do enough, manufacture some runs? How do you feel? You feel like the bats need to go off in this series?
That's such an unknown, man, because when you're looking at this Braves lineup, it feels like your bats have to do enough to stay alive, and you might have to score 7 runs. You might have to score 8 runs one game to win, right? But when it comes postseason baseball is a different animal, and for the most part, dominant pitching wins in the postseason. So I would like to say that the Philly starters and this deep pen can limit the Braves.
Yeah.
But how much are you like what's limiting the Braves? 4 runs, 5 runs a game, where the Phillies need to score 6 a game to win. You know what I mean? So I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think you're going to win like a 3-2 ball game this series. Maybe that happens, game 3 with Wheeler on the mound, whatever the case may be. But we'll definitely have to see. I'll tell you this. This is what it comes down to for me in this series. It's very simple. When you're looking at two offenses that are that explosive and that talented with that much pop, and you're looking at a guy like Spencer Strider versus Zach Wheeler, and you're looking at two teams like the Phillies just made the World Series last year. The Braves won a World Series 3 years ago. You're looking at two teams on a collision course, like you said, on this train track. Who's getting by? I'm looking at their mental makeup, man. Because I promise you have said it often this show, the Phillies are ready for the moment. This crowd the city is ready for the moment. I'm looking at the Atlanta Braves. I don't care how goddamn talented you are. I don't care how many strikeouts Spencer Strider threw in the regular season. I don't care how many home runs you hit in the regular season, how many stolen bases Ronald Acuna Jr. got. What are you made of under those lights? Scotty, they're holding simulation games and allowed their fans to come to prepare them for crowd noise. Their ace, their Cy Young, said that he wishes there were no fans in the ballpark. They're brittle. They remember last year. You know that quote that Rob Thompson said that another executive or another coach from a rival team they played in the postseason said it was 4 hours of hell? You want to know where that came from? It didn't. It obviously didn't come from St. Louis. We were in St. Louis. It
4
didn't come
hours
from the
of hell.
Padres. It came from the Braves. And I want to see what they're made of under those lights.
Yeah. I think what Chile just said here in the comments, man. Phillies have gone through a lot this year. Yeah. And I think that there's something that comes with that, right? Those scars, those battle scars left throughout the season. And I think there's something that comes with that. A little bit more of a belief, right? If we get into a tough situation, we can get ourselves out of it.
Right.
And I think that's what we're going to have to see the Phillies dig really far into at some point in this series is perseverance and fighting back, willing to not.
It's all
fall
fun
down.
and games until you get punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
How do you respond?
Exactly.
I know what the Phillies can do. I've seen the Phillies respond. How do the Atlanta Braves respond if they get punched? How do the Atlanta Braves respond if Bryce Harper hits a 2-run home run in the top of the first inning on tomorrow night? Or Kyle Schwarber goes first pitch hunting and hits one 485 feet. How are you going to respond?
Spencer Strider respond to that, right?
How's that crowd respond?
Yeah.
Is the life just sucked out of them from the first pitch? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what they're made of.
Obviously,
that is fair to say. The Braves, their resilience will be tested as well on the other side. Everything that we can say for the Phillies, you can say for the Braves and vice versa, man. It's going to be crazy. I'm interested, though. Do we want to make our game picks today? Since we probably won't be back tomorrow.
Let's talk game 1 in Atlanta because game 2 will be Monday night. Obviously, we'll have the show Monday morning, so we can get into recapping game 1 and looking at game 2. I will say, looking at it from a macro perspective, both games in Atlanta, obviously this is a very generic statement, but you cannot overlook how important it is to steal 1 of 2 in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And obviously we always point to game 1 because you want to try to take game 1 and get on them early. But you just had to take 1 of 2. You have to come back here 1-1 because if you come back down 0-2 and they just you're already going back to Atlanta in 5 if you win both. Yeah. And you have to win both just to survive. You have to take 1 of 2 down there versus the Braves. But for Saturday, man, Scotty, I think it's that opportunity, right? Now maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's Zach Wheeler can pitch game 2 and you get an injured, blistered Max Fried and he gets pulled in the 3rd inning. And that's the game they take advantage because Strider's just too good. But I am so interested to see what Spencer Strider looks like tomorrow night, man. I get it. It's in Atlanta. He's home. He's more comfortable. It's not CBP with that crowd. So maybe he mows them down. It's still postseason ball. It's still that pressure. What happens if this Phillies lineup gets to him? I'm going to go out on a limb and say they win game 2 this year, unlike where they won game 1. But don't be surprised if they win tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. And while you were talking there, I felt the need to go and look up Spencer Strider's numbers from last postseason when they matched up. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that game 1?
It was game 3. It was game 3.
First game in
first home
Philadelphia.
Game. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a little bit different of an atmosphere for him than starting game 1 this year. Because what 2.1
he was also coming back from injury and it was his rookie year.
Gotcha. So maybe not fair. Gave up 5 earned runs, what 3 hits in that game, 2 walks, 4 strikes, only 2.1 innings pitched. So should see a lot better performance from Strider this year, I would imagine, based on the parameters you laid out there. But yeah, I think the point that you hit was getting 1 of 2 of those first 2, right? If you can get both, then great. You're on a great path, right? But you need to at least get 1 of 2 given the length of the series. Obviously, it's going to take you winning 1 in Atlanta at least, right? So may as well get that out of the way in the first 2 games and not put that pressure on the back end. But yeah, I tend to agree with you just because we don't necessarily know the starter for game 3, although we think it's going to be Ranger. if I can rely on Zach Wheeler getting back for game 2, right? Then I'm going to feel a lot better about taking that game. Any game where we can get our aces, especially on the road, I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable. So if I had to put my money on it, I'd probably say game 2. But that being said, probably going to throw a few beans on game 1 as well. Just because it's a toss-up in my eyes, honestly. As far as if the Phillies can steal game 1, I don't see any reason why they can't. But I also do imagine the Braves, if they have any type of resilience, any type of dignity within themselves, they're going to want to come out and perform really well in game 1, especially after losing the playoff series against the Phils last postseason, right? So there might be a little sting that comes from that. But no, I think, once again, just looking at this, I can't wait to see the matchup just because it's two really good teams. It's hard to even predict what's going to happen game to game, honestly, with these lineups. They can hit on anyone in reality. So the Phillies, they could very well come out tomorrow, light Strider up again, get him out of there early, and then all of a sudden that game's wide open. But on the same side, Strider looking to win a Cy Young this year. He looks a lot better, a lot more composed. He is at home. That's a lot different environment. So maybe he comes out and looks really good. But nonetheless, either way, it's monumental that the Phillies get one of these 2 games on Saturday or Monday. So I'll go with you. I'll go with game 2, but I'm going to throw some beans on the game 1 as well, man. Got to have the
I'm so ready, dude. I'm so ready to see these 2 teams go head to head, and obviously hope ours come out on top. Before we get into some Eagles Rams talk, obviously we won't give our game predictions or get too much into it with us doing pregame live on Sunday afternoon. I did want to make a pit stop in Colorado and talk about this Sixers comment for a second from TR and Martian Lynch. Because Martian Lynch is basically saying, Clippers looking to acquire more picks for Harden is crazy work. They're looking to use a third team for more assets to get James Harden to LA.
Yeah.
And then TR makes a great point. Is James Harden finally understanding that actions speak louder than words?
Yeah.
What I mean by that is he understanding that if he shows up, doesn't cause problems, can be a team player, can work with his teammates, yada, 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 not be a troublemaker, it will drive up interest around the league, more specifically from the LA Clippers, where they might look back and say, okay, you know what? Now X is available for James Harden to get this deal done. Because if you're the Clippers and you're here, you're seeing all the antics in the offseason, and then he doesn't show up to media day, and then he shows up but gets kicked out of practice. Why are you going to give up any first round picks for this dude?
Yeah.
Because he could say whatever he wants. He could say, I just want to be in LA and then I'll be good. Well, he said the same thing when he got out of Houston. And he said the same thing when he got to Brooklyn, and then someone's hamstring hurt. And then he was moved to Philly, and he's home with his buddy.
I love Philly.
This is where I was supposed to be. I just got rerouted. He's stirring problems again. So actions speak louder than words. You could say, I'm a great teammate and I'm a team player and I'll be good once I get to LA. They don't know that. So by you showing up, cameras, video, I'm running drills, I'm smiling with my teammates. See, I can, whatever. Now that gets LA back involved. That gets whoever back involved. And now maybe Daryl Morey can help you piece together a trade. Maybe that was a conversation between his camp and Morey. Morey said, look, dude, I'm working to get him out of here like he wants, but you got to help me out. Because by you just sitting and partying and saying what you're saying, I got nothing for you. So help me help you. And maybe that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think money is a part of it, right? He didn't want to have to go to arbitration like Ben Simmons did for skipping practice and stuff. So I think it's all part of it. And the biggest thing for me, man, if I'm a basketball executive, and maybe most GMs don't think like this because it feels like most GMs have never played basketball for some reason. But nonetheless, what deters me from players like Ben Simmons is when I see them quit on their teammates. That's a red flag of all red flags. That trumps all red flags, in my opinion. Because whenever you're on the floor night to night, 82 games, then a postseason, you get into a second round, grueling 7-game series matchups with these guys become your brothers if you're playing basketball the right way, if you're connecting, communicating, and working as a team the right way. Look at the Phillies, right? Imagine if whoever's dealing with a contract thing. Bryce Harper wants an upgrade, right? He wants a pay increase now after he signed that long contract. He's not making enough. Well, guess what? I'm going to sit out, turn my back on all of my brothers. My brother Bryson Stott from Vegas. I'm going to turn my back on all of my brothers here in the Phillies, right? It wouldn't fly. It would never happen. He would never do that because that's the type of player he is. He's dedicated to his team. And so that was the biggest, I guess, green flag you could say for James Harden was coming back to practice. His teammates saying that he is participating, he is going full speed, he is in great shape. These are all things that you want to hear, not only as a Sixers fan who, maybe Harden will play for the Sixers again, but the Clippers, right? They got on the phones as soon as they saw pictures of this man in Colorado at the Sixers camp. And I think it speaks to what they're looking for. They don't want a guy that's going to come in here, disrupt, or have to catch up as far as getting into shape or getting his body right. Apparently, he's been doing 2-a-days for the last couple months or whatever, according to one of the, I believe it was Mark Jones from ESPN source. So he looks good, right? He looks like he's in shape from the pictures, from the videos. And to that point, I think that takes a little bit of the drama away from it, in a sense. Everybody's sitting here waiting for him to become this distraction. Well, he says, nah, I'll just show up to camp, do my job. And my thing with Morey, it was 2 things. So, one, if I'm Daryl Morey right now, I'll just sit up in my press box, man. I don't need to be down there on the court disrupting the team. I don't need to create like awkward vibes and, force Harden into this situation where he feels like he has to act up. I would just stay up in my box, watch it from there, and wait for this to play itself out. The second thing I'll say about Morey is I'm not going to jump the gun on it, but maybe we all should just stick to being fans compared to what Morey is looking at when he's looking at these situations. Because once again, it feels like it's about to play out into Daryl Morey in the 76ers' favor, just like it did with Ben Simmons, just by being patient. Everybody is sitting here. I said it, man. I said, pull the trigger. Take what you can get. If they're offering this, that, take it. Well, no. Now the Clippers are out searching for pick swaps and first-round picks so they can send them to Philadelphia for James Harden. And the crazy thing about that is if you get those pick swaps, those first-round picks, it opens up the door for other avenues, right? Where you can buy players from teams that are looking to sell and accumulate draft capital. So, right now, things are trending towards Daryl Morey being right? And I think things are also trending for James Harden in the right direction as well. But at the end of the day, we have to sit here and ask ourselves, is this guy like a complete moron, right? He's not a complete moron, right? He's not going to ruin his bag that much that he's just not going to show up to camp and show up to practice.
Did you hear what Stephen A. said on First Take? Like yesterday or 2 days ago. Did you see that clip?
Are you talking about the report about Houston? Are you? Yeah, you can go ahead and talk about it.
Cap. Houston was ready to offer him a max, but he was talking to Ime and talking about how he wants a scoring title, so they pulled out. What on God's green earth are you talking about?
How is he talking to Ime? Is that not tampering?
Exactly.
First of all, you know what I mean? Is that not tampering, if that is true? But what world is he winning a fucking scoring title these days?
But that was never... Think about that conversation. I know we have said James Harden is delusional.
Yeah.
But he's delusional in the sense that he thinks he's worth something. Well, that he's not. And if he was about to receive what he thinks he's worth in a max contract.
Yeah.
he starts talking about scoring titles.
Yeah, I see what you
know
mean.
how like
I
middle
see what you mean.
school, childish, corny rumor that sounds like, Stephen A?
Yeah.
I promise you. Like this dude is so plugged in. He's texting this player and this agent, and he hears things. Oh, brother, you stop. He started talking about scoring titles, so they backed out of his
That's
max
some next
deal.
level egotistical shit. If he's doing stuff
It
like
just
that and
sounds
ruining
like
his
the
bag,
dumbest
like,
story I've ever heard.
yeah, no, and when you say that, it's funny. Me and Zach Noble talked about this last night. That'll air right after this. Honestly, I believe it starts at 9:30 on Scotty Talks NBA channel. We discussed this last night, and you know, a lot of it is James Harden comes to camp. He looks fine. He looks like he's in shape. He's interacting with his teammates. He's interacting with Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse says he's participating in practice, right? And Nick Nurse, by all means, I feel like he's a no bullshit guy. Like he's going to keep it very honest with us as well. He's not like Doc Rivers in my eyes. I feel like Doc Rivers was full of shit.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but my man is getting dragged through the first couple of days of camp.
It's honestly beautiful because I believe that's a good sign for the Sixers if everything they're saying is true. But nonetheless, what I was going to say about James Harden, what it makes me realize is that a lot of these little rumors, these little childish rumors about James Harden and his ego and him being a diva, some of those are not true. Like they just can't be, right? Like him coming to the practice, to the training camp, him participating in the camp. We just heard a day before that he's coming and he's going to be a disaster. He's going to be a distraction, right? He's going to make himself the center of attention and cause a bunch of drama at camp. He comes and he just goes through the basketball drills. So that shows you right there. There's a lot of cap to what has been said about Harden. And I'm not saying that he's totally, free of accountability. It's not like that. I just think that it's gotten taken to this extreme level of just trolling and making stuff up because it sounds right? He was at the club in Houston.
Well, it is
maybe
interesting.
He's not in shape.
It is interesting because he was, on camera saying Daryl Morey is a fraud and a liar, and I will never play for an organization that employs Daryl Morey again. Yeah. Well, brother, you're playing for an organization right now that employs Daryl Morey. So it's like,
he must have read the fine print on the contract after he said that. Yeah. Fuck, I gotta go or I'm gonna lose my money. and maybe it's LA. Maybe LA's saying, hey, go to camp. Try not to be a distraction.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There had to have been some sort of exchange, a truce between Daryl and Harden's camp because they won out and they weren't being, what's the word I'm looking for? Just they weren't being helpful to the situation, right? By running his mouth and not showing up and doing this and doing that. And Daryl said, "Look, man, he can hate me all he wants, and we don't. We're looking in to move him, but you got to do something for me. You got to get him to show up and be a team player for a little bit because no one's calling, and I'm not trading this dude for a bucket of balls. All right, so that something had to have been worked out where it's like, all right, you help me." You show up, be good, behave,
be a good boy,
and I'll get you out of here. All right, so we'll see. If you're the Clippers, man, just grow up already, and add Terrence Mann. Like the fact that I have to somewhat beg for Terrence Mann, as if that's some
feels wrong, right?
That's some golden egg for me that I get Terrence Mann for James Harden. Now, that's the baseline. And I almost have to freaking beg for it. Like, oh my, you can give me Norm Powell too? Oh, no. That should have been like, dude, we were sitting here like Paul George, Norm Powell. Like, this is what I'm looking at, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at Terrence Mann, Norm Powell, and a first-round draft pick that I don't even give a shit about.
Like, we're being held up because of Terrence Mann.
Yep.
9 points per game last season. Like, don't get me wrong. I know what he does, and I want him. I do want him in the deal. I think he would be a good balance with Maxey.
Right, but let's stop acting like he's a rookie.
Yeah, he's Terrence not a rookie. He's 27 years old.
This is his 5th or 6th year in the NBA, and he averages 4 points per game over the course of his career.
I mean, come on. Like, if you want James Harden, you're holding it up because of that. That's weird. That's just weird. You're trying to steal from us at that point. I feel that. I do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Accept the
you have
deal,
Kawhi
man.
Leonard, you have Paul George, you brought Russ back, you got all these other little fun toys and pieces to go with them, but you won't bring in James Harden because of Terrence Mann.
Come on. That's just weird. I
Nerds.
wanted to ask you one more thing regarding the Sixers. It's really not about the Sixers, but how do you feel about Joel Embiid playing for Team USA?
I think it's cool, man. Because here's the thing: it's not to say it's a rite of passage, but to see him, finally embrace that he is a superstar in this league and belongs, and to go play at that level with Steph and KD and LeBron. Like, he's going to start with those guys, right? So to be a part of that, like, nucleus, that family, finally brings some legitimacy to him being the superstar and MVP that he is a little bit. And that he's embracing it, right? Like, he could have played anywhere and it would have been cool for him to embrace that competition. I know we love to sit here and, to us, maybe it's a little less meaningful than Sixers basketball. We don't want him to get hurt, but you got to, come on. Every other superstar is doing it. If you just say, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the way I'm looking at it, because I think it was Mark Henry who was kind of upset that Joel Embiid was playing, and there's other people that mentioned, he can't even make it through the postseason healthy. What's he going to do to get to like summer to be healthy, right, and play for Team USA? I get the concerns of like overplaying him, that type of stuff, but at the end of the day, he was going to play. He was going to try to play in the Olympics regardless, whether it was for the USA, France. I don't think Cameroon could have made the Olympics. I think that's why he was never going to go there. But nonetheless, he could have played for France, and they would surely be in the Olympics. And so what I would say is, I'm just happy to have him on Team USA, like, rather than Team France. Like, at the end of the day, I'm happy to see a Sixer on that roster and be a part of that and build that
and be a focal point, right?
That community, right, within that roster, because what is that also an opportunity for? It's opportunity for recruitment, whether that's them recruiting him, but him recruiting them to Philadelphia to come play with him in the Sixers. So more opportunity for a Sixers player to get ingrained with other NBA superstars. And like you said, I think it's a rite of passage, like seeing Embiid next to LeBron, KD, Steph, like all of these legendary Hall of Fame level superstars from the NBA, may finally get him some like respect and some notoriety himself. And I think he deserves that at this point in his career. And he said he's playing for his son, who is American born. So I actually like that aspect of it as well, man. But
no, he's
I like it.
Me too. We'll see. Especially, everyone's so amped up about when the contracts come off the books, and that's the big off season. Well, recruitment time, JoJo. Go find that star we want.
The hottest free agents next off season: Tobias Harris and James Harden.
Yeah. Maybe when you flip Harden for all those draft picks and pick swaps, maybe it's not a free agent. Maybe next year is that disgruntled, star in a team that's not going to win, and here's a bunch of
the next one is. Who do you think the next disgruntled star is outside of Embiid? Who do you think it could be?
Outside of Embiid's a big note there. That's a great question. Let's think about this for a second, right? Because a bunch just got happy. Right.
Yeah, Giannis should be happy.
Right. Giannis is fine. Dame is fine now, right?
Jaylen Brown.
If Brown's good, if you're Tatum, they trade for Porzingis and Holiday. They're trying to win. You're good there.
Jimmy Butler, I feel like is too old to like.
Yeah, I don't even view him as like a superstar. I know that sounds crazy with what he just did last year and the way he turns it on in the postseason. But you mentioned, and like, just I don't know. I just, for some reason,
regular season he's not. Like at the end of the day, he's not. He turns it up in the postseason.
KD and D-Book are together, right? Steph isn't going to become disgruntled. That is a great, like, Jokic isn't going to become.
I'll give you two just off the top of my head. I'm not sure if I would even put them at the top of my list once I would really look at it. But two that come to mind are Luka Doncic, if he gets fed up with Dallas, and Kyrie starts acting up down there. I could see that. And then Ja Morant in Memphis. I could see that if just time gets played out there.
Well, first of all, everybody else in Memphis should become disgruntled before Ja Morant, because Ja Morant is the cause of all the issues down in Memphis.
But I could see himself wanting to get himself out of that environment if things continue on. They shouldn't, man. It's not even really about that. It's not like other places are going to be better.
The Luka one's a great point, because if Kyrie, at any time, the thing with Kyrie sounds good right now. Something else just happened with Kyrie. I don't know if you saw this or not, but some brand or a company that he owns or is a part owner of, is being looked into for employment issues, like working kids or whatever. So
oh man, Kyrie, of course, right? And I'm not saying I don't know if Nike's any better, right? I don't know what their shops
right.
Look like.
Tyrone Johnson quote tweeted. Let me find it real quick. Here it is.
Is it that Ali or what is it called? Is it that Asian?
It's just, the tweet is from Noah Shotman. It's on rollingstone.com. So, yikes. Kyrie Irving is now the chief creative officer of a Chinese firm that's accused of relying on forced labor and other human rights abuses. Jinkies.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
It's always
never a dull moment when it comes to Kyrie Irving.
Never, man.
If he doesn't feel like showing up to work for a couple days or a couple weeks because, he's got to do what Kyrie's got to do, and they start losing games, and, Luke is a great pick. But, before we wrap up the show, last 10 minutes or so, Eagles, Rams. Obviously, we'll give our game predictions, our best bets, our keys to victory on Sunday on Pregame Live. But just looking at this game through a lens a little bit, I don't think Fletcher Cox is going to be playing in this one.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's looking like Cooper Kupp might make his debut. Obviously, the way things have been going with Puka Nacua over there in LA with Stafford, Kyron Williams has been getting going. What presents the bigger problem to you? Obviously, you're looking at that offense, right? Because that defense, besides Aaron Donald, you and I have struggled to name any legitimate starter on that side of the ball. You would hope that the Eagles offense, who's averaging 30 points per game and over 400 total yards over the last three, can move the ball and put up points. But defensively, is there anything that worries you? Do you think the Eagles have a get-right game after a letdown versus Sam Howell and the Commanders? Can they get after Stafford? What are you kind of looking for on the Eagles defense?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and I think the answer to that question is what worries me is the Rams offense and their passing offense specifically. I think the Eagles will once again be able to shut down the run and force them to be one-dimensional. It's just once you force them to be one-dimensional, can you stop that one dimension? I do think the Rams offensive line, apparently from what I've been reading, different sources here and there, the Rams offensive line is the worst one that we will have faced all season. So with that being said, should be able to get pressure. And to answer the second part of your question, I do think it's an Eagles defense bounce back type of week. I think you look at Matthew Stafford leading the league in passing yards, right? He's slinging it. Nacua leading the league in receiving yards. He's catching it. But at the same time, Matthew Stafford's 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season. He's still turning the ball over. That's 5 interceptions in 4 games. That means there's an opportunity there for the Eagles to make some plays. And quite honestly, man, I don't know if you can be worse than what you were last week, letting Sam Howell drive down the field whenever he wants, because he did it at the end of regulation. And he was one Reed Blankenship arm from getting a huge first down going towards scoring in overtime. So looking at it from that perspective, I think it's only up for the Eagles in reality. I get it. It may be a tougher matchup with Matthew Stafford, more experience if Cooper Kupp comes back. But I think it's time for the Eagles to wake up. And what I saw last week, it wasn't even that I saw this unstoppable force in the Commanders and that the Eagles, they were just so, undermanned in the secondary that they couldn't handle anything. it looked like an effort thing for me, man.
Yep.
I'll be honest. It looked like the Eagles came into that game against the Commanders and they thought that they could walk to the win. They thought that the win would just fall into their lap. Specifically Darius Slay. I'm not trying to pick on him, anything like that. But there was several times where he's out in space and it just doesn't even look like he's running full speed. And so when I look at things like that, it looks like an effort. It looks like you're underestimating your opponent. I think they go across the country to LA this weekend. I don't think they're going to underestimate Matthew Stafford. Slay actually used to play with him, so I highly doubt that he will underestimate Matthew Stafford in that Rams offense. And I think they answer the call this weekend, and the defense shows up. Offense going to need to show up as well, though, man.
I'll talk about this comment more on Sunday afternoon, but this is what I'm looking at. And this is what I was going to bring up to you when it comes to that defense and Sean Desai. I do agree with you. I do think they kind of sleptwalked their way through the first half against the Commanders,
especially.
And maybe thought that it was going to be a cakewalk to win. However, I want to see how Sean Desai can adjust in game, because so far through the first 4 weeks of the season, the game plan against the Eagles pass rush and the soft coverage that Desai deploys, the game plan for opposing offenses has been to get the ball out quickly and try to run the football. You saw Mac Jones do it and excel at it in week 1, right? Even though they only scored 20 points. You saw Kirk Cousins do it to come from behind. You saw Sam Howell do it. The only team that wasn't able to do it was Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, but the Eagles completely took away their rushing attack. So once they were able to do that, they were able to pin their ears back. So my question is, if you're not getting home with a 4-man front, or you're not getting home with pressure, and you're sitting in that soft coverage, if Matthew Stafford and Nakua and Cooper Kupp come out and Higbee and work their way down the field the first possession or two and put points on the board because you're giving up everything underneath, how will Sean Desai adjust? That's my question. And I think that the defensive effort picked up in the second half. I think offense realized what they had to do and and push the ball down the field. They did that. They came back. They took the lead. But to your point, you're right. It almost felt like what they did in the first half came back to bite them on the last drive of the game.
Yeah,
exactly. We scored 1:40 left. Let's watch this clock tick down. That's not the case. You got to make plays. You got to get off the field, and you let them drive it. If Ron Rivera smartens up and goes for 2, the Eagles probably lose last week.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
probably.
I want to see how they respond. I want to see Desai throw in some new wrinkles, adjust mid-game to his scheme, because I'm not saying it's a bad scheme. I'm not saying that at all. But when offenses start to figure it out or find that weak spot of it where, hey, you're not going to get to our quarterback with that ferocious pass rush because you don't have the time.
Yeah.
Well, now I got to bring my corners up. Okay. If they get beat, they get beat for a play or two, man. But I'm not going to risk what I saw Mac Jones do and Sam Howell do versus a guy like Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. I'm not letting it. I'm not letting it happen, man. So we'll see. I would say most of the focus is on the defense, but the offense definitely needs to show up as well, because that's where this game should be won on Sunday afternoon. They should be able to score over 30+ points.
I want to see them take advantage, right? If the Rams do throw an interception, get 7, not 3, right? We got to finish in the red zone and just take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. I feel like we have been doing the opposite. We've been shooting ourselves in the foot. We've been giving other teams opportunities to come back and stay in games. We need to, if we have the chance, close the door early on this Rams team and show some dominance. One of these weeks, we're waiting for that dominant signature win. The Bucks was the closest thing to it on Monday Night Football, but even there, Eagles not finishing in the red zone, taking threes, right? I want to see a game where they come out and they look like that team that we know they can be. And I feel like each and every week I can say this, but I feel like this week could be that week. I also have a feeling that Dallas Goedert is going to have a game finally. I think
he's got to, right? At some point, man.
It's his turn. It's his turn to have a game. I do see that in the cards as well.
It certainly feels like that because it's just so ironic that the year that he comes out and publicly speaks about personal goals, he gets no love through the first 4 weeks. My man ain't sniffing 1,000 receiving yards, bro.
No,
Ain't
not
happening.
at
He
this
hasn't been
moment.
close to finding the end zone. And I mean, I think that's a positive within itself, right? Like it sounds like a negative personally for Goddard, but when you're talking about an Eagles team that's 4-0, that maybe necessarily hasn't hit their stride yet, that still has a top 5 tight end, top 4 tight end in this league that they can deploy and get going at any given point in time. Like that's the thing that's the glass half full way to look at the Dallas Goedert situation is, dude, he hasn't even had to be a factor whatsoever. And they're undefeated. So, they'll be okay until Lynch's point. Yeah, if only we had 2 all-pro corners to play bump and run. It drives me nuts, man. It really does. But we'll see what Sean Desai and company do on Sunday afternoon. Guys, don't forget, subscribe to the DSM-Philadelphia YouTube channel. We will be live Sunday afternoon getting you ready for Eagles Rams Week 5 action. We'll be back here on the Phaithful Phanatics show on the channel as well Monday morning, breaking down game 1 of the NLDS Phillies Braves as well as that Eagles game. And then we'll be live Monday night for Phillies pregame live for game 2. So don't forget, subscribe, turn on notifications, whatever you got to do. We appreciate it. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your weekend.
Let's go Fightins.